is Robert Francis Weatherbee, who was just like you and me when he was little, only his ears were bigger. His mother, Mrs. Weatherbee, and his father, Mr. Weatherbee, would look at him every day and say, "My, what a great man Robert Francis Weatherbee will be when he grows up." But Robert Francis Weatherbee didn't say a word. "Maybe he will be a fireman," said Mr. Weatherbee. "Maybe he will be a policeman," said Mrs. Weatherbee. "Maybe he will be a sailor," said Mr. Weatherbee. "Maybe he will be the President of the United States," shouted Mrs. Weatherbee, and she clapped her hands. But Robert Francis Weatherbee didn't say a word. By and by he grew and grew until he was this big, and it was time for him to go to school. So Mr. Weatherbee gave him a book, and Mrs. Weatherbee gave him a pencil, and the little girl next door gave him an apple, and they all showed him where to go, straight up the street to the school. And they all waved goodbye to him with their handkerchiefs. But Robert Francis Weatherbee would not go to school, so he didn't learn anything. One day, Robert Francis Weatherbee went for a long walk all by himself, way down a road that went through the woods. In and out, he walked between the trees until he was so tired and hungry he was ready to go home. But what a muddle he was in! There were two roads, and he didn't know which one went home. There was a sign like this. It had written on it which way to go, but Robert Francis Weatherbee could not read because he would not go to school. So he did not get home until very, very late that night, after his father came to find him. He was too late for supper, and it had been a good supper. Another time, when he was this much bigger, it was raining, and Robert Francis Weatherbee was sitting indoors thinking about things that would be fun to have. It would be fun to have a kite, he thought to himself, and it would be fun to have a boat, he thought to himself. But the most fun of all would be to have a pony with black and white spots. Then he remembered that his Uncle Jack, who lived out west, would send him a pony if he asked for it. So he ran and got a pen and some ink and a piece of paper and an envelope and a stamp to write a letter to Uncle Jack. But Robert Francis Weatherbee could not write because he would not go to school, so he didn't get the pony that had black and white spots. One more time, when he was all grown up like this, Robert Francis Weatherbee was very hungry, and he asked his mother for a piece of pie. His mother told him to go out and get her 10 apples, and she would make a whole pie all for him. So he went out to the orchard where apples grow on the trees to pick 10 nice big red apples. But when he got there, he didn't get any because he didn't know how many apples were 10, because Robert Francis Weatherbee could not count because he would not go to school. So he didn't get even a little piece of pie, this big. So Robert Francis Weatherbee said to himself, "If I can't read, and I can't write, and I can't count, I will have a very hard time being a fireman, or a policeman, or a sailor, or the President of the United States." So Robert Francis Weatherbee went to school, and he learned to read and to write and to count, and he had a good time.